Welcome back to the IDP Plus Moneyline Podcast. How is everybody doing? My name is Johnny the Greek. Welcome back. It is week 9. And if you're looking for the best NFL bets around, we've got you covered with this week's week 9 IDP Plus Moneyline Podcast. Alrighty, welcome back. Good to see everyone. A little bit of a crazy week this week. We got Halloween tomorrow. We're scrambling. We're doing this a little bit early and just getting it out to the best of our ability this week. We got family stuff and other commitments going on tomorrow, but we would not leave you in the lurch. So we're still doing an episode. As is tradition, before we get into it, these are not even suggestions. We're just discussing the bets I might be making personally. Set a limit and stick to it. For help with problem gambling, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. And we are coming off of an absolute dumpster fire of a week last week. 1 and 2 in the article, 5 and 8 in the podcast. What can I say? Shit happens. Vegas always wins in the end. These are not even suggestions. We're just talking here. And if this is anything other than fun for you, it's maybe time to just step away from the app for a while and go outside for a little bit. With that being said, let's get back into it because we are going to keep shooting. And we will start by skipping the Thursday night game, Jets at Texans. That may not work out for the timing of publication of this episode. So we're going to just start on Sunday, 1 p.m. First game this week is Dolphins at Bills. As things stand right now, Miami is getting 6. Buffalo's giving 6 at -110 either way. Higher over-under of 49.5 points. Money line is Miami plus 225, Buffalo minus 278. And this was an interesting one because I was, looking, as is tradition, looking for trends, looking for something that we can exploit value within, etc. And I did see something interesting here. So if we take Tua over 0.5 interceptions at -150, and then we look back at all the recent Miami Buffalo games going back to 2022, we start to see a trend. It does not go well for Miami when they play Buffalo. So the Dolphins haven't beaten the Bills since 2022. And in those losses, Tua has thrown 6 picks in just 4 games. That's over 1 interception per game. The Bills defense always has Miami flustered, and I'm expecting more of the same this week against a rusty Tua, who's only played that 1 game since missing a month plus with a concussion. And he did not look that great last week against an Arizona defense that is not nearly as good as this Buffalo defense. So I think that's a pretty good shot right there. Tua over 0.5. So Tua to throw 1 pick at -150, basically, when he's throwing 1.25 interceptions per game against the Bills the last 4 games consecutively. So that looks pretty good. And that'll take us to the next 1 o'clock game this Sunday. We got Broncos at Ravens. Could be a good one. So Denver's getting 9. Baltimore's giving 9, -110 either way. 45.5 for the total. Money line is Denver plus 340, Baltimore minus 440. And just looking at the different kind of rankings, trends, stats, etc. for all this, found one that might work out pretty good for us. We're going to take Bo Nix over 213 passing yards at -137. And if you're doing this on DK or something like that, you could do it in bands. You could do over 200 or over 220, etc. Look for the better price out of that. Although -137 is not too bad. So against this Ravens team that is the worst in the league at pass defense right now, that is a true stat. They are allowing 291 yards per game through the air. So that's a pretty significant weakness right there. And they're only allowing 69 yards per game on the ground. So, Denver is not dumb. They're going to know that. They're going to hopefully favor the pass game with this in mind, because that's a very obvious weakness right there. Bo Nix has cleared this line in half of all the games he's played this season. However, it's clear, eyeball test, just watching him play, that he's improving as a passer each and every week. He's actually throwing touchdown passes now where that was not a thing, the first month or so of the season. So he's definitely getting better. And this is not a huge line, over 213 at -137. That's not a huge ask from Bo Nix. Beyond that, it's likely that Denver is going to end up in a negative game script at some point during this game. have to abandon the run and start to try and pass their way back into it. So that could help us get past this number if we're not already there naturally, so to speak. So I think that looks pretty good. Bo Nix over 213, passing yards minus 137. And that'll take us to Commanders at Giants, divisional matchup. Right now, Washington is giving 3.5. Giants are getting 3.5, minus 110 either way. 43.5 points for the over under. Money line is Washington minus 180, Giants plus 150. And I think Vegas might be off a little bit on this one. We did see this game already in week 2. It was about a field goal difference in the score, with Washington winning, if I recall correctly, right at the end. So, Vegas thinks we're getting more of the same. I do not. I think these teams are completely different than what they were in week 2. I'm going to take Washington money line minus 180. And, feel free to either take the Vegas spread here or tweak it, make it minus 2.5. So just a field goal wins for us instead of, a field goal plus. I'd be A-okay with any of that. So what was a close game in week 2 should be anything but this time around. Since then, Washington is hung with Baltimore and then put up the play of the year against Chicago last week. They're 6-2. They're in the lead for the division. They're a confident team, whereas New York has lost their last 3 in a row, and they are just shredded with defensive injuries on the defense right now. So Cordell Flott missed last week. Deontay Banks, their other starting cornerback, was benched last week after 41% of snaps. That's not great. Kayvon Thibodeau is not back yet, so their pass rush is still weakened. And the Commanders are just red hot right now. They're scoring 30 points per game. Washington has the better time of possession ranking, the better offense in yards per game, a more consistent defense, and a quarterback that they can build their franchise around. New York has Danny Dimes, some nice offensive pieces, but they're nice offensive pieces they can't properly utilize because they've got Danny Dimes. So, on paper, this is just not close. Maybe it was in week 2 when Jaden Daniels hadn't seen a lot of game action yet, but, he's had another month plus of games since then. So I do not think this is gonna be close this time around. I think we are sitting pretty with Washington money line minus 180, and we could even go Vegas spread or alt line spread with this and be A-okay. So I think we're looking good there. Washington to win that game rather easily. And that will take us to Raiders at Bengals, another 1 o'clock game this week. As things stand right now, it's the Raiders getting 7, Cincy giving 7, minus 110 either way. 46.5 for the total. Money line is Raiders plus 260, Cincy minus 325. And it feels like, it looks like Vegas is fairly certain Cincy's going to win. I don't know if I would be that confident. They've screwed the pooch in many different scenarios this year. And the Raiders are bad, but are they that bad? I don't know. They could, in my eyes, easily upset this Cincy team that just has a horrendous defense, and their only real strength is their passing game. That's it. So I don't want to touch this. I'm not going to make a bet on this one. The one thing that did kind of stand out was Gardner Minshew over on passing yards. It was like 220-ish or so, but he's only cleared that line twice this entire season, so it's not very likely to happen. So I didn't really want to trust that. The Cincy pass defense is not great, which is what led me to that in the first place, but Minshew's not good enough to exploit that, right? The first part of the equation is find the weakness, and then the second part is find the person or the play or the bet that can exploit the weakness. We don't have that second part this time, so we're just going to skip it. So no bet on that. If you're hellbent on making a bet on this game, Nate Hobbs over on his combined tackle number, whenever that comes out this week, is probably a pretty good bet. He's been over that the last 3 weeks in a row, and he's up against a spectacular Cincinnati passing attack that is top 10 overall and top 10 for targeting wide receivers. So that's a pretty good setup if you did want to go with Nate Hobbs over on his combined tackles this week. And that will take us to Patriots at Titans, probably the worst game of week 9. As things stand right now, it's Patriots getting 3.5, Tennessee giving 3.5 at minus 110 either way. Over under of just 38 points. So Vegas thinks we're getting a stinker. I tend to agree. Money line is Patriots plus 154, Tennessee minus 185. And I'm just going to take the Patriots getting the 3.5 here. I think they'll probably just win the game, but if you're going to give me 3.5 on top of that, that's fine. I'll take it. So Patriots plus 3.5 at minus 110. So it's definitely more a gut feeling. Both teams stink big time, but Brissett should be under center this week. And we've seen the team rally around him several times this season in matchups that they can win, including last week. They just beat a Jets team that had, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and an excellent defense. And this week they got Will Levi or Mason Rudolph, the ghost of Calvin Ridley, and a bunch of guys most people have never heard of on defense over there. So, two entirely different levels of talent. And the Patriots just beat a much better team last week. So they can definitely hang with Tennessee. If we're going to get points out of this, I think, that's a pretty good setup. So we'll take Patriots plus 3.5 at minus 110. And, it's obviously a little iffy. Both these teams are horrendous, but Tennessee is also the third worst team in the league for yards per game, fifth worst team in the league in points per game, second worst team in the league passing yards per game. Their rushing offense is really the only thing that's working for them, and the Patriots will be able to shut that down. They've shut down better rushing offenses this season, that's for sure. All right, and that'll take us to Chargers at Browns. What once would have been a pretty big spread is now just Chargers -2 or Cleveland +2 at minus 110. That is the Jameis Winston effect in full force right there. It apparently single-handedly turned around the Browns as a team this season, which is pretty crazy, according to Vegas anyway, so far. So over under of 42.5 points. Money line is Chargers -125, Cleveland plus 105. And I love Jameis. I love what he did last week. Really good stuff, but I'm going to bet against him this week. I'm going to take Jameis Winston over 0.5 interceptions at minus 157. So basically, Jameis to throw a pick at minus 157. So last week, he did have two throws that should have been picked off. The opposing secondary just couldn't hold on to the ball, right? And he averages 1.25 interceptions thrown per game throughout his entire career, including a 30 interception season. That is correct. 3-0 interception season back in 2019. So while he did get lucky last week, it's only a matter of time before this catches up to him. It's time to pay the piper, essentially, right? We all know Jameis Winston. He loves to just fire it out there and see what happens, and that gets him jammed up a lot. And I have a feeling it's going to get him jammed up this week. So we're going to take over on the interception at minus 157. All right. Make sure you're prepared for the home stretch in fantasy playoffs with IDP Plus. Use the promo code PROPS, PROPS, for 20% off your subscription. Gain access to exclusive tools, in-depth IDP articles, and much, much more. Plus, don't miss out on our private subscriber Discord. Sign up now at idpplus.com/membership. All righty. Next 1 o'clock game is, would have been a good one last year, is probably a bloodbath now. We got Cowboys at Falcons. So Dallas is getting 2.5. Atlanta is giving 2.5, minus 110 either way. Huge over under of 52 points. Money line is Dallas plus 120, Atlanta minus 142. And I'm going to take Atlanta, with the spread, minus 2.5 at minus 110. And quite frankly, it's probably going to be a whole lot worse than that, right? I could see an absolute bloodbath happening here, but we'll keep it simple. We'll keep it safe. We'll say Atlanta minus 2.5 at minus 110 for the same reasons that we've had this entire season. Dallas is the second worst rushing defense in the league, and they're going up against Bijan and Algier this week. That's not good. Beyond that, Dallas themselves are the worst rushing attack in the league, so they're one-dimensional. That makes defensive game planning for them very easy. Dallas has a -8 turnover differential. Atlanta does not. Theirs is at 0, neutral, etc. So not good. Dallas probably going to turn the ball over. Atlanta probably not. Parsons is not looking likely to play this week as of today. That's not good either. DeMarcus Lawrence is already gone. Sam Williams is already gone. Deron Bland might be back this week, but he tweaked his foot that he was recovering from on IR last week, and that may delay his return as well. So we've got a shredded defense that was already horrendous against the rush and is now so bad with the pass rush and the injuries in the secondary that they're bad against the pass too. This Dallas defense that used to be great is just absolutely horrendous right now. So, with all that in mind, it's pretty obvious that Dallas is going to fall behind at some point. And when they do, it's going to be the Bijan show and the Matt Judon show and the Jesse Bates show, right? Dak will throw some picks. Dallas will lose. It's like it's already happened. I can see it so very clearly in my mind as a Cowboys fan. So we'll ride this thing the pay dirt. We'll say Atlanta -2.5 at -110. When the Bijan props come out, I would definitely take a look at his over on his rushing yards against this absolutely horrendous Dallas rush defense as well. So that's another backup option for you. But I think it's a pretty good bet that Atlanta just annihilates Dallas this week. So Atlanta -2.5, -110 is the call there. All right, and that will take us to the last 1:00 game. We got Saints at Panthers. New Orleans is giving 7. Carolina's getting 7 at -110. Over under of 43.5. Money line is Saints -325. Carolina +260. And I'm going to take the Saints alt line -6.5. We're just going to take the normal spread, turn it down half a point so that the Saints just have to win by a touchdown at -122. So Derek Carr is expected to return this week. And if that's the case, then this thing is blindingly obvious, right? If it's Spencer Rattler versus Bryce Young, which they've already announced Bryce Young will be starting this week, then who knows? But if it's Derek Carr versus Bryce Young, then we already know that it's going to be the Saints, right? So even if we only get a shadow or a percentage of the offensive production we were getting when Derek Carr was under center for this Saints team, they're going to absolutely annihilate Carolina. The week 1 through 5 Saints were a top rushing team in the league, and they could take the top off with the occasional play action deep shot. I know Shaheed's not going to be there anymore, but Chris Olave can fulfill this role. They got a couple other speedsters on the team, so I'm not too worried about that aspect of their offense. And they're still more than capable of pounding the rock with Alvin Kamara, and they happen to be up against the worst rush defense team in the league with Carolina. They are the worst right now. So, even if nothing else is working for them, they could still dial it back, run the ball, play good defense, and easily beat this Carolina team and definitely cover 6.5 for us. Not to mention Taysom Hill is back, so that's going to help them in the red zone. When healthy, like New Orleans now is going to be for this week, it's not a fair fight, right? If Spencer Rattler were still under center for this game, I would have no idea how this thing's going to go. But with Carr back in the saddle, this is an easy bounce back game for New Orleans against one of the worst teams in the league. So we'll go Saints -6.5 alt line at -122. All right, and that'll take us to the first 4:00 game. We got Jaguars at Eagles. Jacksonville is getting 7.5. Philly is giving 7.5, -110 either way. Over under is 45.5 points. If we went money line, it's Jacksonville +270, Philly -340. And just looking at the different kind of aspects of this matchup, there is something that stands out. It is Jalen Hurts over 213.5 passing yards at -137. And just a quick note, these are early lines that have been kind of crowdsourced from different gambling websites. The DK line may look a little bit different, but it'll be in this ballpark, right? Whatever Jalen Hurts line is, I want over for passing this week is basically what I'm saying. So he's going against this Jacksonville pass defense that is the second worst league wide. They are allowing 271 yards per game through the air. And Hurts has gone over this line in 4 of 7 games this season, and he's done so against far better pass defenses in Green Bay, Cleveland, with Green Bay and Cleveland. So Jacksonville is also having some issues in the secondary. Ronald Darby is hurt, probably won't play this week. Tyson Campbell literally just came back from IR, so he's a little bit rusty. There have been tons of fluctuation overall in the secondary. Darnell Savage was just moved to safety to displace Antonio Johnson, among other shenanigans, right? So they know their pass defense is bad and they're making moves to try and fix it. But none of those moves have really done anything yet, as they allowed 250 plus yards to Green Bay and then 276 to the Patriots the week before, the last 2 weeks, right? Either one of those results would easily clear that line of 213.5 pass yards. So I think we're looking good. We got a talented quarterback that just needs to get over a manageable line of 213.5 up against one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and they're at home in Philly. So that all looks good. I think we're okay. Jalen Hurts over 213.5 passing, minus 137. Want a little extra in your fantasy football bankroll? Deposit just $10 with FanDuel and get $50 in bonus bets. It's the perfect boost to kickstart your season. Don't wait. Claim your bonus now at idpplus.com/FanDuel. Alrighty, and that gets us to the next 4 o'clock game. We got Bears at Cardinals, a true pick'em. Chicago +1, Arizona -1, minus 110. Vegas has no idea who the hell's going to win. I don't either. Over under or 44.5 points. Money line is Chicago minus 108, Arizona minus 112. And we are going to target a weakness here. We're going to take DeAndre Swift over 66.5 rushing yards at minus 120 against the Cardinals rushing defense that's allowing over 140 yards per game on the ground and is the 7th worst in the league for this ranking. Swift has passed this line the last 4 weeks in a row and has been averaging north of 18 carries a game in that span. He's heating up, and it also lines up with a known weakness of the Cardinals. So I would expect a heavy dose of Swift pounding the rock this week with that in mind. And that's not too terrible a line either. So I think we're looking good here. DeAndre Swift over 66.5 rush yards, minus 120. And that'll get us to another 4 o'clock game. Lions at Packers should be a very good one. We got Detroit minus 3.5, Green Bay plus 3.5 at minus 110. Over under of 48.5 points. Money line is the Lions minus 175, Green Bay plus 145. And we are going to take an over on the alt line total, over 44.5 points, alt line total at minus 178. I know that price is not spectacular at all, but feel free to tweak it up a couple points if you want. In fact, we could probably even keep the Vegas total of 48.5 and just say over that, but that's not what I'm going to officially write down because I want to get it right. Just being real with you. But yeah, I think the odds are good. We have a massive shootout here, and here's why. So these two teams right now score 33.4 and 27 points per game, respectively, Detroit and Green Bay. If we get those normal totals, we'll be sitting at about 60 points, and that's like a 16-point buffer for us. That's way more than we need, so we should be sitting pretty. But this great, as we've talked about before, this Green Bay team actually is closer to 30 points per game when Jordan Love is under center. The only problem is we don't know if Jordan Love's going to be under center this week with the injury he picked up last week. So wait on this one. Wait until we know. Either that Friday afternoon after the last practice when they announce those final, questionable, not questionable type deals going into the weekend, etc. Maybe wait until then to make this. But I think regardless, if we use this alt line, we're getting over. We're getting over 44.5 at minus 178. If Jordan Love can play, then we could probably keep the Vegas line and get over 48.5 pretty easily as well at minus 110. So, more to be revealed on this. We're going to have to wait to find out what's up with Jordan Love's health. But assuming he's good to go, we should have a complete and total shootout on our hands here and be good to go with that alt line. All right, and that'll take us to Rams at Seahawks. Next 4 o'clock game should be a good one. We got the Rams at -2, Seattle at +2, minus 110 either way. Over under of 48.5 points. Money line is the Rams minus 122, Seattle plus 102. And I'm going to do the same exact shit we just did with the Lions and the Packers. I'm going to take the total, tweak it down a few points, and say over. We're going to do over 44.5, alt line total at minus 167. So with DK Metcalf very likely back this week, and the Rams getting Puka and Cooper Kupp back last week, we have all the ingredients we need for a shootout now. So these teams score 23.8 and 20.6 points per game, respectively. That's Seattle, then Los Angeles Rams. But the Rams have suffered multiple weeks of degraded offensive production when Puka and Cooper were out on IR. I mean, we all remember that, right? It was just the Kyron Williams show. They just handed it off 30, 40 times a game and tried to win that way. There was no DeMarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell breakout or waiver wire, savior type stuff. That never happened. They just ran the shit out of the ball instead, and that kind of killed their points per game. Well, those days are done and over with. Puka was back, Cooper was back last week. The Rams scored 30 points, right? That's more what we're used to when their offense is healthy and intact. And then, if we get that or around that, and then we get the 23.8 that Seattle's been giving us, we're looking at 53-ish points, and that gives us a 9-point buffer on this alt line. So I think we're looking good. I think we're easily over that 44.5 alt total at -167. And once again, either turn it up a little bit if you don't like the price, but you're just lowering the chances it happens, or throw it in a round robin parlay, not a normal parlay, a round robin parlay, so that you can still get a couple things wrong and still end up okay at the end of it. And that's the way you approach these kind of bad prices in general. Or just skip it and go with something else that's got a better price, right? No one's holding a gun to your head making you bet any of these things. YouTube comment people. So just putting that out there. But yep, I think we should be okay here. Over 44.5 alt line total at -167. DraftKings is making it easier to win big. Deposit $50 and get $50 in bonus bets. With IDP Plus Insights and DraftKings, you'll be racking up those fantasy points in no time. Grab your bonus at IDP Plus/DraftKings. Alrighty, that will take us to Sunday night. Could be a good one. Was not a good one as of last week, but we got Papa Joe Flacco coming in, so we might have a game on our hands now. We got Colts at Vikings. Indianapolis is +5. Minnesota's -5, -110 either way. 46.5 for the total. Money line is Colts +185. Vikings -225. And I'm going to do alt line the other direction. I'm going to say Vikings -6.5 alt line. And that's going to give us +114 on this bet, which is pretty good. We like that. And after losing 2 straight, Minnesota to Detroit and Los Angeles, the Vikings get an exponentially easier opponent this week with the Colts team. That is the 5th worst now against the rushing attack league-wide. Still dead last in time of possession league-wide. Minnesota has the better turnover differential, +5 to +1. Minnesota sacks the quarterback a whole heck of a lot more, the 5th most in the entire league. So yeah, Flacco may be better, but Richardson could at least escape those sack attempts sometimes. Flacco's not going to be able to do that. So beyond that, Minnesota is excellent against the run. They're the 3rd best team overall, allowing fewer than 84 yards per game on the ground. And the run is what Indy wants to do. We've seen that very clearly this entire season. They will literally just 2 yards in a cloud of dust with Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson over and over again, and that's why they've part of why they've made this change to Joe Flacco. Their pass offense has been dead on arrival, and he gives them a chance to not be one-dimensional anymore, which is what you need in this league to not get your ass handed to you, essentially. So none of this lines up well for Indy, and beyond that, it's more of a gut feeling. So Minnesota is a very good team. They'll be getting Hawkinson back this week on top of Jefferson's there, Addison's there, all their Aaron Jones is healthy once more. They've got all their normal weapons. Minnesota has lost 2 close games to 2 very good teams, but they have a chance to go home and absolutely blast a mediocre to bad Colts team in front of the entire nation on Sunday night in Minnesota. And that's exactly what I think they're going to do. So Vikings -6.5 alt line, +114. Alrighty, and last but not least, that takes us to Monday night. We got Bucks at Chiefs. Tampa Bay is +8.5. KC is -8.5 at -110. Over under 46 points. Tampa Bay +350. Kansas City -455 for money line. And I'm just not going to touch this one. No bet. It's too far away. It's Wednesday at 6:20 p.m. when I'm recording this thing because of Halloween tomorrow and other stuff I got going on. And while many other content creators might just say, "Screw it, you're not getting anything this week," I decided to move everything around to still try and get something out to you guys. Unfortunately, though, this is too far away. I opened the betting app a couple hours ago. There's not much there for that game, so I couldn't give you any prices or anything. And there was nothing that really stuck out either. So no bet. It's too far away. Most of the lines haven't dropped. We've got injuries that have kind of made these offenses look different than what they normally are. So I'm not really sure how this game would go to begin with. So just not going to touch it. But I'm sure you guys will find something good. So, yeah. With that being said, that's all I got. Thank you guys very much for listening this week. Good luck in all your week 9 bets. I hope everything works out and that you make some money. And we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming next week after the Halloween holiday. And we'll be here all the way through playoffs, Super Bowl, etc. So, yep, that's all I got. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.